Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Today I'm going to try to answer some of your questions about what happened to the rest of me, and then I have a flexible printing 3D project that I think you might find interesting. Welcome back to Cloud 42, I'm James. The astute among you will no doubt have noticed that there is not as much of me as there used to be. I've been publishing videos regularly on this channel now for a little more than a year, and if you look back at some of the older ones, the difference is pretty dramatic. These clips are from a video that I shot about 9 months ago. Now, you have to understand, I see myself in the mirror every day, so I didn't really realize just how obvious the difference was until I started going through old footage to put this together. For comparison, here are those same clips side by side with some from a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I get a lot of questions about this, so I will try to answer the most common ones here. This video is a little bit weird for me, so I made some notes. I don't normally use notes when I speak. I just speak extemporaneously and get everything in one take, as far as you know. Question number 1, are you sick? This question kind of surprises me, but I've gotten it from several people. I think probably people are just trying to be careful so they don't accidentally congratulate me on a terminal illness or an eating disorder or something, but the answer is no. I'm not sick. I'm perfectly healthy as far as I know. Question number 2, did you do this on purpose? Yes, I did this on purpose, and yes, people really do ask me that question. Question number 3, how much weight have you lost? As of today, I'm down about 68 pounds. That's about 31 kilograms. Question number 4, in 5 months? Isn't that really fast? Yes, I suppose it is. I didn't really set out to lose the weight that fast. It's just kind of what happened. Question number 5, are you on that diet I heard about? Probably not. I'm just eating less, moving more, and picking up heavy things. Now, everybody's situation is different, and it's good that there are lots of options out there. But for me, I'm not particularly focused on weight loss. I'm really much more interested in making lifestyle and habit changes that can last a lifetime. Question 6, how did you do it? Now, first of all, let me say, I'm not a doctor. I try not to give people medical advice because I'm totally not qualified to do that. But since you asked, I will tell you what I'm doing. And if you want to do something similar, talking to a doctor about it first might not be a terrible idea. First and foremost, I'm counting calories. I have an app on my phone where I log everything that I eat. I have a daily calorie budget that's designed to drop about 2 pounds a week, and I've been hitting that regularly for about 5 months. Now, exercise is great and probably necessary, but in the end, it's really the calorie deficit that drops the weight. I'm just eating a normal diet of fruits and vegetables, grains, meats, dairy, nothing special. I'm not cutting out anything in particular. I'm just controlling the portion sizes and trying to choose lower calorie options when I can. You know, for breakfast, I'll typically have like an English muffin with marmalade or a bowl of oatmeal or something with an iced latte made with whole milk, of course. Lunch varies, maybe a salad with some chicken in it, or there's a place I can get some chicken wings that kind of come in at a reasonable calorie count, lettuce wrap burger, or even sushi. For dinner, I typically have a piece of lean meat, a serving of potatoes or bread, and a big pile of vegetables. And then I try every day to save a couple hundred calories for a snack. I'm particularly partial to anything salty or crunchy. Popcorn's one of my favorites. And then every Sunday night, my wife and I walk about a mile up the road to an ice cream shop and get an ice cream cone. Second, I'm getting out and moving more. I have a Fitbit. You've probably seen this in a previous video, and if you haven't seen this one, you've seen a different model that I had before this one. I always try to make sure to get at least 10,000 steps a day, and then 4 days a week I get some kind of cardio exercise. Usually it's just been 45 minutes on the eclectical. One take. But lately, now that my weight's down, I've started running, and I found that I really enjoy it. You know, I've never really run much before unless something's chasing me, and then only in short bursts. But you know, I've also not really spent a lot of time outdoors, but last few months I have, and you know what? It's pretty cool out there. And finally, I'm lifting weights 3 days a week. I have a routine set up where I work through different muscle groups on different days and repeat each muscle group once a week to give me time to recover. Question 7, what prompted you to do this? You know, I don't really have a great answer to this question except to say that it was just finally time. I've been thinking about making some changes and getting healthy for as long as I can remember, but for some reason I just kind of never did. And I finally just came to the point where I'd had enough and I was ready to do whatever it was going to take to make things better. Now, there are a handful of circumstances that kind of got in my head and affected my thinking. One person I got to give a big shout out to is Adam Booth. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with who he is, but if you haven't seen his channel, ABOM79, you might want to go check it out. Adam announced earlier this year that he was working with a doctor and he was planning on losing some weight. And that really just kind of got in my head and changed my thinking. You know, I've watched people in my office at work get healthy over the years and make changes, and I kind of had in the back of my mind this, you know, wondering if I was going to be the last big guy in the office. And so then when Adam said that he was going to be losing weight, it just kind of shook me and made me wonder if I'm going to be the last big guy on YouTube. So hats off to you, Adam. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. And right here, you're seeing some of the practical results of your inspiration. Question 8, how do you feel? Physically, I feel great. I've got a ton of energy. I can spend all weekend on my feet in the shop without getting sore, but I'm also handling stress better. My emotions are better, just ask my wife. But the one thing that's really weird though is that my perception of myself really hasn't changed very much. I still kind of see myself as the big guy. I find myself like preparing myself to get up out of a chair, and then I just get up out of the chair and I just come right up. It's no big deal. Or I'll get down on the floor and I'll kind of groan as I start to stand up, expecting my knees to pop, and it just doesn't happen. And so that adjustment's been weird. And every time I walk by a mirror or walk by a window or see myself in my peripheral vision, you know, I do a double take because I haven't adjusted the way I see myself. But kind of the funniest thing that I run into on a daily basis is doors. I've never had issues with doors. I just walk up to doors and push them open. But now every once in a while I encounter a heavy door, I walk up, push on it, and it doesn't move. And I have to take a step back or put a foot back to be able to actually push the door open. And that's probably the most noticeable thing that I really run into on a daily basis. Question number 9, are you going to keep the weight off? You know, it surprises me that people ask this question, but maybe it shouldn't. I mean, people lose weight all the time and then gain it back plus some. I think the best thing that I can say is that I have not approached this as a short-term weight loss program. I'm really trying to approach this as a life change, as a lifestyle change. I spent a lot of years counting the cost before I really committed to doing this. And I haven't really made any changes that I don't think I can maintain for a lifetime. Still, if you want to find out for sure, click the subscribe button, keep watching, and you'll find out if I keep it off. Okay, I think that's enough of that. You didn't come here to hear about somebody else's diet. Now, if you did and you want to hear more, let me know that down in the comments, but I think most of you came here to see a project. So let's get to the project. This is a vacuum thermos water bottle. These have actually become pretty popular where I work. Pretty much everybody's got one, and they keep them full of ice water during the day and just drink from it all day. This one is made by Thermos, which I guess means it's a pretty good one. And it has an Under Armour logo on the side, which I guess means it's a pretty expensive one. But these things are pretty good. They'll keep ice in the bottle for something like 24 hours. So it's actually a really nice bottle to have in the office, have full of ice water. You can drink from it all day. Lid flips up, it's easy to drink from. And so, I mean, this is why everybody's got one. But by the same token, everybody's got one. And so now that I've got one too, I'd like to do something to my bottle to make it easy to recognize so that it doesn't look like all the others. And I was thinking, I've got a 3D printer, I've got flexible filament. Why not print, some kind of a sleeve or a sheath or something that will stretch over this and give it some color, maybe give a place to put a logo. So let's give it a try. The shape of the bottle here is kind of narrow at the top, it gets wider, and then there's kind of a little hip here that's the widest point of the bottle, and then it gets narrower again. So I'm thinking this is probably the best point to put something around it. And if you take the top off, it should be easy to slide it on here. And we just need some dimensions so we can model up the bottle so that we can then model up a part that will fit it. And so I'm going to kind of take some measurements here and maybe do a kind of an abstract drawing of this thing. This will be, obviously you got the filler neck here with the threads on it, and then the bottle gets wider, and then it gets narrower. And of course this is very abstract, not because it's intended to be abstract, but because my art skills are fabulous. So we need to know the width across here, we need to know the width across here, and we need to pick some point further down and get a width down here as well. We're also going to need to know sort of the height of this top section, and we'll take this one down something like, say, 1 inch. And so let's see what we've got. Now the top of this is a little bit hard to measure because it is rounded. So to some extent, I'm going to have to kind of just sort of estimate what this is, but the calipers are, take a good measurement and I can kind of get it into physical space. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but I think about 2 3/4 inches looks about right. So I'll say 2.75, and the widest point on the bottle, .969. Calipers don't quite go over it. 2.96. 2.944 again. This is not an easy measurement to take. 2.964, 2.965. Let's just pick a number in here. 2.966. We'll call that the number. Ultimately, what we're going to put on here is flexible, so it doesn't have to be, really fantastically accurate. It'll stretch a little bit. So that hip is down. Oh. Let's call it 1.1 inches. And then let's take a point 1 inch down from that, and then try to get a diameter on the bottle there. And this is, terribly not quite right. There we go, 2.795. Let's just take that. So 1 inch, 1.1, 2 3/4, 2.966, 2.795. I think we can work with these numbers. Let's go to the computer, let's make a model, and let's design a sleeve that will fit over this bottle. Okay, here we are in Fusion 360, and the first thing we need to do is to model the top of the bottle itself. So let's create a sketch here. And we're ultimately going to revolve this thing. So let's start by just drawing some lines to get the shape of it. So we're going to come out, down, back in, and I'm just going to come back, align this up vertically so that we have something we can, so we have a closed shape that we can then revolve and create a solid. Now we wanted to have the height down to the hip. We measured that. That was 1.1 inches. Make sure we're set to inches here. We are. And then the space below that, we measured down another 1 inch to the second dimension. Okay, so the diameter at the top, we measured 2.75. So this is the radius, 2.75 divided by 2. The next level here was 2.966 divided by 2. And this point was 2.715 divided by 2. Okay, let's stop that. Take this and create revolve. We'll revolve that around this line, and there's the solid shape at the top of the bottle. Now I'm going to put some curves on this, and I'm just going to sort of guess. I'll click here, hit fillet, and let's say 0.5 inches. And I'm just sort of trying to judge what this looks like. Again, we're working with flexible material, and it's going to be kind of springy, so I'm not expecting it to be a big issue. Let's see, 0.7. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, let's fill at the top here because the top of the bottle on the neck is rounded. 0.1, that doesn't look quite enough. 0.2, that looks okay. Okay, so let's call that the shape of the bottle. And now we need to model up the sleeve that's going to go around this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new sketch, and we'll just put it on one of these surfaces. Now the first thing we want to do is get the shape of the bottle into that sketch. So I'm going to come in here and say project include, and let's intersect that surface, that surface, that surface, that surface. So that gives us the lines that are on the edge of that. Okay, now let's offset that line. Some amount. Now I know with the 3D printing that about 1.2 millimeters is a really nice kind of minimum wall thickness. So I'll just say 1.2 millimeters. That actually looks pretty good. Now we're going to need to close this at the bottom. Draw a horizontal line across. And then we're going to need to close this at the top. Now I know that above this shoulder the cap's going to be there. And I'd like a little bit of a gap because the cap's got a silicone gasket and I don't know exactly how far it's going to come down. So I'll draw a line across here, some point down from the top. And let's just put a dimension on that and call that maybe 50 thou. Yeah, that looks all right. Okay, and then we're going to need a line to revolve this around as well. I'll just put that in the middle. Stop that sketch, and now let's revolve this. Okay, create, revolve that around this line. And we want to create a new component from that. And you can kind of see it's here, but it's it's the same color, so it's kind of a little bit hard to see. We'll change that here in a moment. Okay, so here's component 1, and this is going to be the sleeve. And let's change the color of that just to make it easier to see. Not paint. Plastic, opaque. Let's make it red, since that's the color of material we're going to use. Okay, there it is. Now we need to, at the top here, I'm going to print this thing upside down. I do need a flat surface to adhere to the bed. And so looking at this top surface, I kind of have a radius that comes over, but then the top of it is actually flat. So we'll print this upside down. We'll use that against the bed. And since that's going to be nestled up under the cap, I think that's going to be just fine. It's not going to stick out. It's not going to be in the way of anybody's hands. Down here at the bottom, though, this is going to be kind of down against the smooth bottle. The bottle continues even though we haven't modeled it that way here. And so I'd like to go ahead and fillet this. Try maybe 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, that's really nice. So that's going to come down to a sharp point. And since we're going to print this the other side up, the 3D printer should have no trouble bringing that to a sharp point on the top edge. Okay, we've got the sleeve pretty much modeled. Let me turn off the bottle form that we had inside of it. Now I would like this to squeeze down on the bottle. I don't want it to just be this shape. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these inside surfaces, and I'm going to do a press pull. And I'm going to pull this by about 0.3 millimeters. Okay, so that's just the first surface. Click the second one, the third, and the fourth. See, does that look the way we want it? Yeah, so that entire surface is going to pull in 0.3 millimeters, which means the diameter of this thing overall on the inside will be 0.6 millimeters smaller than the diameter of the bottle. And that'll cause this material to stretch a little bit, which will make it grip on the bottle and stay put better. Okay, that is the shape. And so now we need to etch our logo in it. Okay, now this is a little bit tricky. It's relatively easy to emboss a logo into a flat surface, but a curved surface like this is quite a bit more difficult. So let's start by constructing an offset plane. And let me pick a surface to offset this from. That one will be fine. And we'll bring it out here. It doesn't matter really where it is as long as it's outside of this. Okay, and we will create a sketch here and look at it. Okay, now I have my logo as an SVG, so I will say Insert SVG. Let me go select it. It's that one. And it's upside down, so let's turn it over and let's scale it. Let's bring this in and scale it down. And okay, it's backwards. There we go. Let's try to get that centered on this surface where I want to emboss that. Okay, that looks good. Now let me delete the LLC here. I don't want to put that on. And I've got a little bit of work here to do on this 4. Let me get this cleaned up because this is the 4 and the H are kind of overlapping. So let me get in here and break some of these lines. And make sure this is a closed shape. So now we have our Clow 42 out in front, and we need to project it back down to the surface. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a tool to actually split the surface so that we can then press and pull the individual letters to emboss them down into the surface. So I can right click here. Actually, I can just select that surface and then go Modify, Split Face. And then I have to select the splitting tool, and I will choose this. And I'm going to say closest point. So that will project right onto that surface. Now I don't think I can do this more than one at a time, so I'll just do these one by one. And so now what's happened is we have that C on the surface, but it's so there's two surfaces there. So I can then right click on this surface and I can press and pull it to do the embossing. Let me turn the sketch back on here, and let me go in and go ahead and do the rest of the letters. Okay, there we have it. We've got the face split into these different segments. Let me go ahead and turn off that sketch, and let's go in and select and say press pull. And I'm going to go ahead and control click and select the rest of the parts of the logo here. And then I am going to push those back in by about 0.3 millimeters, 0.5 millimeters, minus 0.5 millimeters. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, that's the logo on the part. I think we are ready to print. So let's say make, select it, and send it over to Simplify 3D. Okay, well, we're not going to succeed in printing it this way, and we left this flat surface, so I'm going to hit Control L, and we're going to select one of these triangles that's on this flat surface, flip that over, center and arrange. That looks pretty good, though I think I would like to rotate this. put the logo in the front so that we can see it when it's printing. Okay, now let's see, what are we doing for settings? Okay, process settings. This is the 8-inch extruder with my itty bitty belted extruder, Ninja Flex. Layer is, first layer height 100%, that ought to be just fine. 0.2 of a millimeter. We'll go ahead and use the skirt and brim around it because that's really needed in order to prime for the Ninja Flex. Infill around 20%, that looks pretty good. Let's take a look at it. Let's make sure that we're actually getting a decent build. So we start on the bottom with some bands, and then it looks like we do have some fill that's happening in between the layers, in between the inside and outside walls. That works its way up. You can see the red travel lines are around the inside of the material. If we saw a lot of those lines crossing the perimeters in the center, I would be worried about that because those would just lead to strings. But this all looks pretty good. And then as we get up near the top, fill gets narrower, then disappears, and then it tapers down to a single thread around the top. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's send this to the printer. As always, since this is Ninja Flex, we're printing very slowly. Printing 0.2 millimeter layers, this part takes about 6 hours to print. The material is really springy and it's tough to maintain a proper flow rate. If you go faster, you tend to get too little extrusion at the beginning while the pressure is still building up, and too much at the end, or after you try to stop, it dribbles all over the bed. Slow and steady works best with this stuff. Lest we forget, the part is also flexible and it has to support its own weight during the print. Now, relatively speaking, this part supports itself pretty well, so the weight isn't a problem, but horizontal deflection could be. This printer has automatic bed leveling. You probably saw the probing at the beginning of the print, and that gives us a solid base, good adhesion, and a level build. But any inconsistencies in the nozzle or the bed height could lead to the nozzle colliding with the part and pushing it around, and since the material is flexible, that would impact the surface quality. But the round shape of this makes it pretty stable though, so I don't really expect any problems. Okay, this is the sleeve, flexible material. Let's see how it fits. That's about the point it gets to, and then it starts stretching. Let me line the logo up a little more. That stretches over the bottle and slides down, and it kind of seats right against that fillet there at the top. That's fantastic. It's tight there, it's tight across the hip, it's tight all the way up to the top. Lid goes on, and there we have it. I'm very happy with how that turned out. You can see the logo there. I'm not sure if you can see that. I may try to get a photo of that and stick it in. The lighting in the shop here is pretty flat, and so sometimes it's hard to see small details like that. Well, I am very pleased with that. Now, to be honest with you, this is not the first one that I did. This was the first one, and I made it a little bit shorter. It just barely goes over the hip in the bottle, and what I found was that even though it fit on there just fine, it didn't really hold any kind of handling like this, and it would slide up against the cap or it would slide off, and I wasn't really happy with that. So I decided to make it longer. This is prototype number 2, and it is the same length as this one, so it slides down over the bottle, but it's a little bit thinner, so it's a little more stretchy. It's not quite as strong. And this is actually made to match the size of the bottle exactly. I didn't tighten it at all by extruding or pulling on that inside surface to make it actually squeeze the bottle. And so this fits on and it's fine, but again, it moves around a little bit too much to my liking. This one fits great. I've been using it for a couple of days. I'm really happy with how this fits on here. It does not go anywhere, and it looks pretty good on the bottle. I've thought about trying to maybe do something down here at the bottom, but this is great. I can see my bottle from across the office. I can tell it's mine, and that's exactly what I was going for. Well, that's it for today. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment. I'd like to know what you think. This one could be interesting. Thank you for watching.